Well, the numbers say that most probably it's going to be renewable energy because that's the most uh, cost effective. Uh, 800 megawatts might not be a very ambitious target. The entire BPC community is, the bulk purchases are about 3,000 plus megawatts, I believe. So 800 out of that is a very conservative but a cautious way to go about it. I've got grid stability issues to take care of. And we've had very serious and extensive discussions with the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, the IMF, and everybody else. 800 megawatts is not a number that can't change. We would see the response of it. We would like to expand it to a lot more megawatts than what we have in our mind, but we want to do it in a very responsible manner. It's not just to save the grid and socialize the entire cost of it, but we would want to go about it in a gradual manner. The sooner we can do it, the better. So 800 megawatts over 4 or 5 years is not the target. It could be 800 megawatts in the next couple of years. Let's see what the first 200 megawatts part of the auction entails. And the auction is not for revenue generation at all. It is for transparency. So whoever I know in the industry comes up to me and asks me to allow them to go off the grid and to be able to wheel, say, 50 megawatts, who am I to make that decision? So the auction part is just to assess who is the first company or entity who gets to wheel these 200 megawatts. Yes, all BPCs would be able to strike an understanding with the competitive suppliers, and the competitive suppliers would be the ones who will actually bid for this auction. Any decisions so far, unfortunately, I've been trying to hit my head against the wall for the past 8 to 9 months. Net metering regulations are not what they should be in Pakistan today. Yes, in 2017-18, when I was a minister for a year, we did decide to encourage people to get onto net metering systems and invest into solar systems. But I think now the market has grown beyond that. Pakistan is one of the best models of solar distributed generation coming onto the system, and even off-grid. Off-grid is a lot more than on-grid. On-grid is about 6,000 megawatts. Off-grid is a very conservative estimate, is about 12 to 13,000 megawatts.
When can we expect
They are
decision?
making windfall profits. That's a burden on the rest of the grid. We cannot allow that to happen in the future. And I hope we have the political will and are able to bear the pain of such economic reform in the very near future. And there is going to be hue and cry about it in the newspapers and in the talk shows. Oh, solarization ko ye log encourage nahi kare and all that. But I think we shouldn't pay any attention to that. Well, they improved on the recovery part of it the most. The losses haven't come down to that extent. This year we are focusing on trying to reduce the losses of the distribution companies. I think the boards have been able to play a very important role. I've tried not to manage distribution companies from the power division at all. It's not my job. I haven't ever run a utility company in my life, nor has my secretary, nor has the additional secretary. So we've tried to bring into place a board and some board members who have been able to do a good job. And wherever we haven't been able to do it because of political compulsions, they have not been able to do a good job at all. Companies from Sindh, HESCO and SEPCO, absolutely pathetic still after 18 months of me being the power minister. And I acknowledge that and I accept that. And we hope that in the near future, we can bring into place some board members there who could actually make a difference. I mean, boards do matter. Even in the private sector, if you have a company, a privatized utility company who does not have an effective board and an assertive one and a fair and transparent one, and if there are issues amongst shareholders within the board, the company cannot perform. And we've seen that happen in Pakistan. Shareholders, so I think it's our responsibility, but unfortunately the government nominees have not been able to play a proactive role in the past. Now the finance minister and us both are actually working together, and we've encouraged our Nomi needs to be more proactive on the boards at the cost of some criticism coming on to us. But I think when the private sector people are also not performing, then the government needs to take care of its shareholders' interests and needs to play a more proactive role. We are wanting to put into place an environment where there is minimum government interference, and I hope and pray that we do not own and manage these companies in the very near future. So privatization was another reform, sir. I think it's all up to the privatization commission. For the first time in our history, the power division has been able to reach a point where we are completely prepared. All conditions precedent to privatization are fulfilled, and the privatization advisor and the minister needs to now go through those transactions and get people like yourselves to look at Pakistan and invest yourselves. मैं सर एक I'm sorry that I'm the only one speaking, but you can ask me to keep quiet whenever you want. There's one very important thing. I am not expecting any FDI to come into the power sector in the very near future. I think on the national transmission side alone, Rohil Saab, the situation is scary. We have constraints that we need to invest into immediately, as of yesterday. Asian Development Bank and the World Bank, all these banks are ready to finance us, but we don't have the rupee cover. We don't have space in the PSDP to convert those dollars coming in into rupees. There's a horrible system out there. You need some kind of rupee cover to translate these loans into spending in Pakistan. So I've also asked the PPC, and I had a very extensive meeting with you and Javed Saab, and I would really encourage you people to look at these projects and also the distribution companies. Or please do not hold us responsible for the recent IPP negotiations. Do not be scared of that. That happened because there wasn't a competitive process that took place at the time. There was cost plus regimes and bad governance structures in place. If you have a proper, transparent, competitive process that has been that has held your hand through the transaction, these things cannot happen in the future. Let me give you the example of the IT and telecom part. When I auctioned back in 2004 the GSM license and the frequency spectrum at that time, has there been a change in the structure of those transactions ever again? Hasn't there been enough competition to get consumers to actually benefit and the companies to do the same? So I think a competitive process which we would like you to author yourselves and propose to us is something that is much required for the confidence of the local investor. It doesn't change in a matter of months. Tariffs are multi-year. They're 5 to 7 years on an average. And if the regulator and the regulatory process is transparent, and if the regulator has capacity enough and transparency enough, investors don't have anything to worry about. KE's multi-year tariff was actually delayed for 2 years. Incapacity of the regulator. We're also looking at changing and amending the NEPRA Act itself. The regulator needs to be not controlled, but there needs to be some kind of an accountability of what the determinations have been, what has been the quality of those determinations, what kind of people come on to the authority. Just because there is a provincial representation required from each province, that should not and cannot be the criteria anymore. Yes, the provincial representation needs to be there, but maybe in the form of a supervisory board, not in the form of members who are actually digging deep into the technical part of very complex financial models and making a decision on the basis of that. So we are trying to put into place a much improved environment for both the regulator and the policy maker to make good headway in the future. Battery storage actually kicks in. the duck curve that we are in, and it's no longer a duck curve now. In the daytime, it's almost become like a snake. So that, well, the lower part of the duck curve is getting deeper. So there are instances where the cost of, well, the fuel cost or the variable cost is much lower. You Dr. Saab, maybe that's about what the trend might be like. So the people, so your, and in the peak hours when there is no solar, the cost of the variable cost could actually come down because people would be having stored electricity for them to use themselves. We've also started looking at the concept of virtual grids. Okay, so there are battery storages across the grid owned by people. So the concept of virtual grids and acquiring power from them at a certain point in time, which will bring down the overall fuel cost or the variable cost of the grid, are also into consideration. They've also started very seriously looking at shifting at least the industry, the big users of power, towards more of increasing the fixed component part of their load. And this is not going to be mandatory. This is not going to be the only option. So we might give the industry an option. If you want to stick to this regime, you're much more welcome to do that. But if you want to pay more fixed costs for the sanction load that you have, and if you want to shift to a regime where we have hourly or at least 6 hourly or 12 hourly or whatever, so there would be a different variable cost that you will be paying in the daylight hours, and a different one in the evening, and then a different one, say, late at night. So the time of use would be a very important factor in the near future. So we are looking at being innovative enough, like the rest of the world is, in trying to bring into place a tariff structure that would ensure a recovery for us in any case and not involve any subsidies, but would also encourage the industry to use more power at a certain time and hedge that part of it with the increased amount of fixed cost they pay for the sanction load. Right. So we are going to do that. The tariff of the rail sub, it's already reduced by about 16 rupees, but it's not good enough. So you're at about 14 odd cents right now as we speak. I think that needs to come down further. We're looking at different options, maybe a debt swaps of some sort or whatever else. Well, I think the capacity and the fixed part of the cost of electricity, I don't know if the Honorable Finance Minister would agree to that or not, but we need to fiscalize it to some extent. We are inefficient. We are inefficient, but we're not that inefficient. So please do realize that in countries like the US and others, where there's more part of innovation in your manufacturing sector and in other intellectually strongly sectors of the economy, the cost of power, even, I mean, in the US, data centers are also running at 13, 14 cents per kilowatt hour. But here in Pakistan, we do need to, our target is to try to come down to about 9 to 9.5 cents for the industry not to have that as an excuse not to grow. The other thing is, I would just very quickly, since I have to go for a intergovernmental commission meeting with the energy minister of Russia at the Islamabad club, I'll just give you very quickly. So we have reduced industrial tariff. We've gone through early retirement of fossil fuel plants. We have sold redundant government-owned plants that were a burden of 7.5 billion rupees in salaries being paid to the employees. We have gone through a reduction in circular debt. There are customer-centric and more transparent systems like 118 and Apna Meter Apni Reading. Net metering regulations we are looking forward to that. NTDC, the biggest constraint in the system, is being restructured as we speak. It's been split up into 2 companies, NGC and IDMEC. There has been a solarization of tubewells in Balochistan. So the political economy was taking an advantage of 60 billion rupees a year by not paying for the electricity that they were consuming from the grid, adding the burden onto you, all of you. There has been an electrification of strategic areas like the GB and Gwadar. We are going through the process of actually trying to get the private sector to put up a plant in Gwadar for more reliable power. Vigilant knew the mechanisms on regulatory decisions. a reduction in the EV tariff. Much before all the noise that you heard on the EV sector, I think it was about a year ago that we brought down the tariff from 71 to about 38 rupees. IGSEP, NEPRA Act amendments. Oh, by the way, Rohil Saab, there's another very big step that we are about to take. We are going to author the first integrated energy plan. Pakistan doesn't have an integrated energy plan. So the petroleum division is working in its own silo. We are doing that in our own. The transport sector in the provinces is taking its own direction. There hasn't been an effort to try to get all the stakeholders in place and have a proper integrated energy plan. The power division has taken that responsibility, and we are getting all these stakeholders together to have an integrated energy plan authored within the next 1 year. ایک تو چائنیز کا ہمارا ایک سی پیک کے فریم ورک کے اندر انویسٹمنٹ ہوئی ہے, ٹھیک ہے, آئی پی پیز کے ساتھ کسی سی پیک کے فریم ورک کے اندر انویسٹمنٹ نہیں ہوئی تھی. تو چائنیز کے ساتھ ہم ڈیٹ ری پروفائلنگ اور چیزوں کے اندر, ایل پی آئیز کو ویو آف کرنے کے اندر, سیکولر ڈیٹ کی اگر ان کو پیمنٹ چاہیے ان کو بھی ایل پی آئیز ویو آف کرنی پڑیں گی, جس طرح باقی آئی پی پیز کو کرنی پڑیں گی. تو چائنیز کے ساتھ کوئی اسپیشل ہمارا ارینجمنٹ اور انڈرسٹینڈنگ نہیں ہے, اور نہ ہی کسی کو اس قسم کی چیز دی جا رہی ہے. آئی پی پیز کے ساتھ جو ری نیگوسیشنز ہوئی تھی, میں اسی لیے یہ کانفیڈنس سے بات کر رہا ہوں کہ اگر ایک کمپیٹیٹو پروسیس ہوتا, اگر ہم گورننس کرنے والوں میں اس وقت اتنی عقل ہوتی اور کاسٹ پلس ریجیمز کے اندر اور اپنی مرضی سے ریگولیٹر انیفیشینٹ ٹیرفز جو بعد میں بوجھ بننے تھے, اگر if they would have gone through those inefficient processes, یہ نہ ہوتا. 2004 کے اندر ٹیلی کام پالیسی بھی آئی نا, اس کے اندر بھی ایک آکشن پروسیس ہوا نا, کمپیٹیٹو پروسیس تھا. کس نے بولا اس کے اوپر؟ اس وقت $5 ملین کے اوپر ایک کمپنی کو ادھر اس کا فریکوینسی اسپیکٹرم ملا تھا, وہ اٹھا کے $295 ملین کے اوپر کیا. اس کے بعد نہ انہوں نے کمپلینٹ کیا, نہ ہم نے کمپلینٹ کیا, نہ کنزیومر سے کمپلینٹ کیا. آپ کئی کی بات کریں, میرا کوئی کئی کے بورڈ کے اندر جھگڑوں سے سروکار نہیں ہے. شیئر ہولڈرز کا مسئلہ ہے. پورا 1.5 سال we've been asking the shareholders. SIFC has been trying to help them to sit across a table and resolve their issues. میرا یہ مسئلہ ہے کہ میں نے پرائیویٹائزیشن سے پہلے اور ڈسکوز کی, اس سیکٹر کے اندر خوابوں کی دنیا کے اوپر بیس کر کے انویسٹرز کو نہیں لے کے آنا تھا کہ 5 سال کے بعد وہ پھر ڈس اپوائنٹ ہوئے. ریئلسٹک ٹرمز کے اوپر لے کے آنا ہے جس میں ان کی بھی بھلائی ہے اور ہماری بھی سسٹینیبلٹی ہے. میری خواہش یہ ہے کہ ایس سی سی پی کے لاز کے مطابق ایک پبلکلی لسٹڈ کمپنی اپنی بورڈ کے الیکشن صحیح وقت پہ کروائے. بھائی یہ حکومت کی کمپنی تو نہیں ہے, پرائیویٹ سیکٹر کی ہے نا. پبلکلی لسٹڈ کمپنی کو بورڈ کے الیکشن صحیح وقت پہ ہونے نہیں چاہیے. اگر کسی شیئر ہولڈر کا کسی دنیا کی کسی کونے کے اندر کوئی ایشو ہے آپس میں, خدا کرے وہ جلدی ریزالو ہو جائے. حکومت کا تو شوق نہیں ہے اپنا سی او بٹھانے کا, ہمیں تو اپنے اچھے سی اوز نہیں ملتے تو ہم ان کے لیے کہاں سے بٹھائیں گے. سو دس کمپنی نیڈس ٹو ڈو مچ بیٹر فار اٹ ٹو پرووائڈ ریلائبل اینڈ assured power at good tariffs. ابھی تو شکر کریں کہ یونیفارم ٹیرف کی رجیم ہے, ورنہ کراچی کے لوگ پتہ نہیں کس روپے پر یونٹ پے کر رہے ہوتے, اور حیدرآباد کے اور سکھر کے. By the way, uniform tariff is another big evil in the system, which we might not have the courage to go through this reform, but ultimately the power sector cannot. We are disincentivizing efficiencies in the distribution sector by holding on to the uniform tariff system. But we are planning to do so for the near future and the mid-term future. تاکہ ایک دفعہ ذرا اس کے اندر اسٹیبلٹی اور ذرا ایک میچورٹی ڈسٹریبیوشن سیکٹر کے اندر آ جائے. اور دوسری بات ہے مشتاق صاحب, میں یہ بات ڈنکے کی چوٹ پہ 100 دفعہ کہوں گا کہ جو انیفیشنسیز ہیں, چاہے وہ انویسٹر کے فائدے میں ہوں یا ہمارے فائدے میں ہوں, انیفیشنسیز ہٹانے سے کبھی بھی ہم نہیں کترائیں گے, کیونکہ 10 منٹ کی 10 آرٹیکلز آ جائیں گے کہ تم انویسٹر کو بھگا رہے ہو. اگر یہ کئی کا جو اپنا معاملہ بتایا ہے, یہ ہم معاملات کو درست کریں جس طرح ہر پرائیویٹ سیکٹر کا اینٹی چاہے گی کہ درست ہو. نہیں سسٹین میں کر سکتا 100 ارب روپے سالانہ اپنے ٹیکس پیئر کا پیسہ دے کے کسی کو, بیکاز وہ لوگ ایفیشنسی اپنی کمپنی کے اندر نہیں لے کے آ رہے. میری پبلکلی اونڈ اینڈ مینجڈ کمپنیز کے اندر 100% ریکوری آئی ہے کہ الیکٹرک کے ایریاز کے اندر جہاں 700 یونٹ سے اوپر ہے وہاں آپ کے ریکوری ریٹ 65 اور 70% ہے. وہی اگر آپ صرف 90% پہ اوپر لے کے لے جاتے ہیں تو مائی ملٹی ایئر ٹیرف میکس پرفیکٹ سینس. ہم نے اپنے بینکرز بھائیوں کو بھی بیٹھ کے ایکسپلین کیا, ان کی مہربانی, انہوں نے ہمیں آڈینس دی کہ ان کی کوئی ڈیٹ سروسنگ کو اور کسی چیز کو اس ایم وائی ٹی کے اوپر سے کوئی ایفیکٹ نہیں ہوگا. رسپانسبل لوگ ہیں سر, ہم تو چاہتے ہیں کہ چاہے اس کا ایک انویسٹر ہو یا دوسرا ہو, میرا رشتہ دار تو نہیں لگتا. ہم تو ایس سی سی پی کے قوانین کے تحت ان کمپنیز کو آگے بہتری کی طرف لے کے جانا چاہتے ہیں. اگر آپ 1.2 یا 1.3 ایئرس کے پے بیک پیریڈ سے نیٹ میٹرنگ کے جو کنزیومرز ہیں, ابھی ڈاکٹر صاحب نے بات کی, یہ زیادہ میٹر نہیں کریں گے ان فیوچر, لیکن اس وقت کی بات کر رہا ہوں. اگر آپ نیٹ میٹرنگ کے یوزرز کو, جو ہم سب جیسے لوگ ہیں, they are not the poor of this country, they are the well off of this country, اگر ان کا پے بیک پیریڈ آپ 1.25 سال سے اٹھا کے 3.25 سال کے اوپر لے کے جاتے ہیں نا, which is a very good pay back period, تو آپ کی 200 ارب روپے کا فرق پڑتا ہے for the entire grid. 2 روپے پر کلو واٹ آور کی بجلی کی قیمت نیچے ہوتی ہے, ایک کوارٹر کے اندر ہو جاتی ہے. So the next QTA will bring in that effect. And what are we paying us people like us windfall profits for? وہ کسی نے بہت مشہور بات کی تھی کہ ایک امریکن فٹ بال ٹیم تھی جس کے اندر سارے ملینئرز ہوتے ہیں ماشاءاللہ, سب پلیئرز آتے ہیں ویری ویل آف. ان کو وہ جب تھرو کرتے تو وہ ٹرانسلیٹ نہیں کر سکتے تھے ٹو کیچز. اس کے کوچ نے بہت ان کو کہا کیا کر رہے ہو کیا کر رہے ہو کیا کر رہے ہو, وہ ٹھیک نہیں ہو رہے تھے. ایک دن ٹریننگ سیشن میں کوچ آفرڈ them $5 a catch. So those multi-millionaires started converting all those throws into catches. So even if it does not matter to us, the hue and cry is no, ہمارا سولر کو ڈسکریج کریں. یہ بات آپ پلیز روہیل بھائی, یہ بات آپ لوگ پی بی سی کے اندر بھی ہر جگہ اگر مناسب سامنے کہیں, اور پاکستان کسی چیز کے اوپر تو اپنے آپ سے پراؤڈ ہو. We have authored, we have gone through, whether I have authored it or not, it doesn't matter. This country has authored one of the most successful solar and renewable energy transitions in the world.